Hello, it's 12 o'clock here, local time in Warsaw. I'm Diana Skaya. Welcome to TVP World News. Friedrich Merz, the candidate for German Chancellor from the Christian Democratic Union Party, has arrived in Kyiv on an unannounced visit. Now, the trip comes just days after German Chancellor Olaf Scholz also made his way to Ukraine. Now, upon arrival, Merz expressed his eagerness to meet Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and discuss potential ways of supporting the country. Now, he's also emphasized Germany's consistent support for Kyiv, adding that stronger backing would lead to a quicker end to the war. Now, this marks Merz's second visit to Ukraine since Russia's full-scale invasion began. It also comes at a critical time for Germany following the collapse of its ruling coalition in early November. Russia's war against Ukraine should be a lesson for Polish authorities about the importance of optimizing and integrating military systems. Now, this according to Jacek Siwiera, the director of the Polish National Security Bureau. Siwiera also claimed that the West is providing Ukraine with a variety of weapons. However, they have still not been integrated effectively.
Today, the war in Ukraine is still not optimized on the Western side. The Ukrainians have been given a vast array of different weapons with different production and maintenance costs. They use them with varying effectiveness, and they are not integrated into one platform, one command system. It is this war that should give us a basis for determining how to integrate and reduce the operating costs of the equipment we provide for use by the Polish army.
The UN Security Council will convene on Monday afternoon for an emergency closed-door meeting on Syria. Now, this comes as Syrians around the globe celebrate the ouster of Bashar al-Assad. Russian press agency TASS has reported that Assad left Syria on Sunday and was granted political asylum in Moscow. Now, after 13 years of civil war, Syrians abroad are celebrating following a rebel victory against the Assad regime. Now, demonstrators chanted anti-Assad slogans and held flags of the Syrian rebels. In the Lebanese capital of Beirut, people could be heard chanting, "As Assad burned us, he will now burn himself." Syrian rebels swiftly seized Damascus over the weekend, pushing Bashar al-Assad and his family out of the country. U.S. President Joe Biden commented on the developments, commending the rebel forces for overthrowing the dictator, and expressed his hope that this would bring more stability to the region. Rebel forces in Syria have managed to topple the country's government, but what happens next is anyone's guess. Now, geopolitics expert Chris Kotowski says it's simply impossible to predict how Syria will be ruled come 2025. Let's listen to this clip from TVP World show Press Corner.
We have to remember that those rebel forces, they were actually affiliated with al-Qaeda in the past, called the al-Nusra Front. Although they split from al-Qaeda, nonetheless, they are Islamic-backed groups. The question is, what kind of rule will be in Syria? We have to remember that Syria is a very, very diverse country with al-white minority, which was actually ruled by Assad, the majority Sunnis, which are actually by the rebel forces. We have Kurds in the east. That's a big question mark, what's going to happen there, because of the Turkish-Kurdish relationship. We also have the Christian minority also and the Druze. So it's a jigsaw puzzle, to say the least. So what's going to happen? Well, definitely Russia and Iran are taking a huge, heavy blow in Syria right now. But what's going to happen with the government? That's a big question mark. And only time will tell. But either they could go down the road of being a hardcore Islamist rule in Syria, which I don't think anybody wants, or it could be more of a moderate rule. But I think the next days, weeks, actually even days, are going to be critical.
The full episode of Press Corner is available on our YouTube channel, and we welcome you to watch it. To Georgia now, where pro-EU demonstrations continue and incidents of violence against protesters are on the rise. Now, on Saturday evening, masked attackers brutally assaulted peaceful demonstrators while the police stood by without intervening. Sonia Gata-Bishchan has more.
This footage shows violence against protesters and journalists on the streets in Tbilisi. Hooded attackers also entered an office building and beat the protesters inside.
We got here police and the special forces and the people with the masks. And these people with the masks are people from the special forces who just take off their uniforms and wear some kind of just civilians forms with the masks. And their job is to run after the people and to beat them.
Georgian President Salome Zurabishvili strongly condemned the attacks against the protesters.
Unbearable to watch, indisputable proof, and yet still no reaction from police or responsible authorities. I call on the MIA to take immediate action in response to the atrocities unfolding on the streets and arrest those responsible without delay.
I think what we are witnessing right now in the streets of Tbilisi is nothing else than the state-sponsored terrorism against its own civilian population and peaceful demonstrators.
Claiming rigged elections, President Zurabishvili called the government illegitimate. For many, Georgia's ruling pro-Russian party, the Georgian Dream, is more than a setback for the country's EU aspirations. Numerous Georgians view the situation not as an isolated event, but as a potential threat of expanding Russian influence to other countries.
This is the Russian type of strategy, Russian type of scenario. It is not happening first time in Georgia. It has happened in 2014 in Ukraine. Same type of scenario.
Madam President.
During a meeting on Saturday,
Thanks so much. How are you?
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy voiced his support for Georgia.
We are with your people, of course, and on the side of your country always, your way of life and your choice of future EU membership in NATO.
Georgian protesters are urging international journalists to enhance their coverage, hoping this could help provoke a change.
We need the rest of the world to watch us. We need the attention. We need attention to survive because we're doing our best to make this change.
Although nearly 50 demonstrators were detained by the police on Friday and many were injured in the last days, the spirit of the Georgian people is not broken. For TVP World, Sonia Gatabishchan.
The political crisis in Romania continues as the second round of the presidential election was not held and the first round was invalidated by the Constitutional Court. The presidential race will now have to begin from scratch. And while the world focuses on irregularities with political advertising on TikTok, suspicious activity is also occurring on Meta. That's according to Guillaume Custer, CEO and co-founder of Check First HQ. Now, in a recent interview with TVP World, Custer touched on the question of how it's possible that Meta allegedly allowed voters to view thousands of political ads.
So the question about these ads on Meta should really be asked to Meta. We don't really know why the moderation doesn't work. What we do know is that most of these ads should not be online. We are talking about thousands of political loaded ads that are either promoting heavily the two Romanian far-right candidates or bashing the political opponents, trying to have them pass as pro-Western, almost monkeys, really. It is very hard talk against the political opponents. So we've seen episodes of similar campaigns in Moldova. Our partners Reset Tech have uncovered also a network of coordinated Facebook pages running ads in that country. So there is clearly a moderation problem in Eastern Europe that might be due to the languages that these countries use. Being rarest languages, it might be more difficult for the platforms to moderate them, but that should be taken as an excuse because we are talking about very sensitive political context. We are talking about the elections of countries. So Meta really needs to do better at moderating the content because these ads are either illegal or against the terms of use of the platform itself, so they shouldn't be online.
Poland should pay close attention to what is happening in Romania because of your upcoming election, says former Romanian diplomat Eusebiu Slavitescu. Now, he told TVP World that the annulment of the first round of the presidential election came as a surprise to Romanians. Let's listen.
This is pretty complicated. As for our institution, nobody really saw it coming. We had multiple reports. Even the next day, the security services commented that nothing out of extraordinary. So something happened in these days. They got their hands on something. They saw something. Right now, for example, our judiciary, our police are investigating, are talking to a lot of people. So we will know more in the coming weeks, in the coming days. But honestly, nobody was really ready. And if I were, for example, Poland, with an election coming up next, I would be very, very careful when that's happening in Romania, because you are next, and not only.
And now turning our attention to Australia. Police say an arson attack on a Melbourne synagogue that left one person injured and caused widespread damage was likely a terrorist attack. Now, local police have stepped up patrols of Jewish areas in the city in connection with the incident.
We will now transition the investigation under the umbrella of the Joint Counter-Terrorism Team, which is a joint team ran by the Australian Federal Police and Victoria Police with expertise in these investigations, and we will continue that investigation. In terms of the reassurance patrols and for the community, the Jewish community, we have ensured that we have increased police in the areas, increased visibility, and making sure we're out and about at synagogues, at other places of worship, at places of significance to the Jewish community. And the investigation will now take its course and will follow where the evidence takes us.
And that's all for this edition of World News here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Do stay here on TVP World for more news and features from the region and abroad.